know that with the recent storms, this is not the end of them. We're just the beginning of storm season. So the best thing is, if you're dealing with anxiety, all the things that we talked about today is not working, you might have to seek professional help. Do some counseling to help you with the being overwhelmed. That persistent fight or flight feeling that you're having. So, always think of a therapist or a counselor. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing to talk about our feelings to someone that can help us um, filter out some things and create a plan. And again, natural disasters is going to be coming, so I just want you to be prepared. And if you need a little extra help, it's okay. It's okay.
Right. So true. We don't have to bottle up our emotions, our feelings. We can, and that's we're our goal here is to create community where people can share without feeling judged. But this is what I'm going through.
Right.
So another topic that is in the news cycle and has been for a while. If anyone is following politics, now we are not going to get into who you vote for, who you support, none of that at all. But we're saying that when you, when you're looking at what's going on, I think it's fair to say on both sides, there's a lot of fear, right? It's like fear if this person gets elected, fear if that person gets elected, what's going to happen to the country. And that has caused Chevelle and I having conversations about having this as our first episode. And I was just kind of looking through the news and just seeing kind of where Americans are mentally with all that. Because I know I feel exhausted. I feel like, oh my goodness, I'm looking forward to this being over. But then I'm also concerned, like, well, what happens when it's over? What if whoever doesn't like which way this goes? So that has created for myself a little bit of anxiety about what is going on and what happens after Election Day. And will everybody just kind of say, okay, whomever won, let's move forward? Or are we now gearing up for something else? And so I was looking up on the about how other folks were feeling online. And some people are feeling anxious, just kind of anxious about the future. A lot of young people, especially, they're not really feeling too positive about where the country is headed. Now, when I say that, it means like, what does the future look like for them? Like, will they be able to live that American dream? Will they be able to have a family and buy a home and all that? And so just thinking about all that and being a parent and maybe trying to explain that to your kids when you're also feeling like, I'm scared with you. I also don't know, how I feel about this. That's a lot. On top of we're involved with Ukraine right now, what's going on in the Middle East. It's just has been nonstop. So Chevelle, what you said about limiting your media intake, and that can mean social media too. I think that is so important because it can feel very scary right now for a lot of people.
Yes, Kai. Um, I'm telling you, just you can't escape. It's on the news, it's on the commercials, it's on the radio between, your favorite song, then you hear. It's to the point that sometimes, leaving your house and you looking both ways, like, is it safe to leave? I mean, because
Right.
I feel that if I just hear the stuff that they're saying, it's like a war zone out there. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? It's just
Mm-hmm.
so it's like, what I had to do for my mental wellness is like what you said. I had to limit my exposure to the news. And I'm the type of person, I would watch the 5 o'clock news, then I would watch the 6 o'clock news for my local news, then I watch the world news. I had to limit myself and said, okay, I'm gonna watch the news maybe twice a week, but I'm gonna watch the weather channel for my local
Mm-hmm.
weather so I know what's going on. I need to know if it's gonna rain, if I'm going to work, it's gonna be foggy in the morning. But because it's just you have to be intentional about what you consume, and that's where we can take that control. Control the exposure. I'm getting my computer cord here because my computer about to die. But again, we're in the moment. This is real life right now.
Right.
But the news can cause heightened um anxiety, so we got to set boundaries with ourselves. We got to set boundaries with the news intake. That we got to set boundaries and the conversations that we have to break it up during the day. Sometimes you have to disconnect and recharge, and that's what I do. I It's just too much. It's too much, and I'll be so happy when this election is over. But also, even when it's over, the news is something always bad in the news,
Yes.
and it's to be informed, but you have to set boundaries because again, it will dwell on your mental health and you're like, you just feel helpless, so it's just
Hmm.
you can take control. We can't control what's happening in the world. To an extent we can when we if you choose to vote or whatever, but far as with politics, you have to take control and just step aside and say, I gotta disconnect.
Hmm. Yes, I agree with that. And we have question reliable info. I mean, I think that when I think about reliable info, I think of listening to, say, you're like, okay, I just want to be abreast of what's going on. And I think that's listening to different news outlets. Because let's be honest, we know that there is like more conservative news outlets, and we know that there is, let's say, more liberal. So is there a way that you can find like a middle ground? So I just think this is what I'll put it this way. This is what I do. I look, listen to, read all different type of sources, and then I reach my own conclusion. And so that's what I just kind of recommend for people to do. And that can also help lower anxiety, because instead of me feeling like, oh my God, the world's caving in, I just kind of look at different news sources. And then I'm like, okay, now earlier I did say feeling a little anxious, which is true because other people may not maybe viewing this election or what's going on differently. But I think that because I try to have a level look at what's going on, I can kind of be more measured. So I may be feeling a little anxious, but I can also begin to tap it down, say, okay, Kai, just take a break from this outlet, or let's just watch something else. So I think it's important to read different sources. That can kind of help you have an idea of what's going on. You can still feel a little anxious, but even though you're feeling anxious, because you're not just in fear, you can also think clearly and plan ahead. And I think that's what's so important. I know we lost Chevelle. Should be popping back on. Here she is. She's back. Sorry. That's okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I told you my computer was dying. And it died. So
You're back. So Chevelle, I was just saying, we had a question about the reliable info, and I was just saying that for me personally, I look at all different type of media outlets. Like, we all know that there's certain news that may be more conservative and some more liberal. I read kind of everything, and then from there I make my own conclusion. Now, I still may feel anxious about some things, but as I said, reading different sources allows me to be a little bit more level-headed. And I feel that even though I may be a little anxious, I'm not operating in fear. So I can also plan. Like, okay, I feel a little uneasy about this, so I can plan. I'm in paralyzed, can't move because I'm so scared.
right. No, I totally agree with you. And I think, you know, we're living in a day of age of technology with information, which is great, but the downside of it, everyone has a camera and a microphone and can sound truthful. So,
Hmm.
I think it's important not just, to seek the truth out for yourself, like you said, but even with that, you don't want to become overwhelmed because it
Hmm.
can become so overwhelming. Um, because you just don't know what to believe. But
Hmm.
we got to use our critical thinking skills, I like to call it, and seek our information for ourselves, but also we have to create a mental balance with that.
Hmm.
um because it become overwhelming and really can affect people. I mean, I'm a social worker, if you guys don't know. I have clients that really it affect their sleep, you know, because they're so afraid. They said there's not going to be no more food, or I'm going to lose my. One person told me that they're going to lose their Social Security. And I said, okay, so where did you get that from? Like, did you get a notice from Social Security? You know, all of these things. And it was just, well, someone told me they're going to take my pension away. And I'm like, well, the government can't take your pension. You know, so it's just like,
Mhm.
I try to talk with them, but also, you know, help them limit what they're hearing on the radio, help them limit on what they're hearing on the television, because it can consume you and it
Mhm.
can eat you up.
Yes, very true. And so I will say this too. What it's been helpful, Chevelle, for me and my
Mhm.
husband is that when you can kind of tell when someone is on that news kick because we're like, I read this or I saw that. So we
Mhm.
would kind of hold each other accountable. And he would say, like, hi, how much you been watching? Like, because you being real negative. And I'm like, okay. So having that like accountability person that can
Mhm.
also help you, like, I think you need to start watching stuff, or I think you need to step back. Because sometimes you don't know. You're so into like, you can go down a rabbit hole. And next thing you know,
Mhm.
hours later, you've consumed all this information. So I think having that person that also says, listen, you need to lay off the news, like
Mhm.
go enjoy life because right now you're not.
Yes. So, like you said, go and enjoy life. So you can focus on what you can control.